Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. It is April 14th, approximately 10:30 in the morning, and I wanted to go over with you some news that has come out that's a little surprising and may change the election in 2024 on a local level. But it also represents what we're seeing across the nation. We'll explain what we mean in just one second. Now, before we get started, we do want to mention, if this is the first time that you're seeing our channel, we welcome you. We thank you for being part of our audience. We want you to know we do long-form political commentary. And every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream with you. We reach out on all the social media that the internet overlords will allow to be able to hear your voice, to be able to speak with you directly from anywhere around the world, through chat, through tweet, and through your phone calls, talking about the issues that matter to you, the issues that affect us all across the globe. And so we hope you will join us this Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to speak with us about the issues that matter. So the subject at hand today is election news, election 2024. I know it seems a little bit early for that since it's only April in 2023, and many members of Congress have only just been in office just about 3 months now, many of them being sworn in January. But we are already hearing some candidates, certain Democrats, that are upset about losing in 2022, and so they're announcing today, or this month, that they're going to run again. Now, we have some questions about that, and especially about one candidate in particular that we have been following for many years, someone that I've known for over 7 years now, and that is Josh Riley, who ran for the New York 19th District in 2022. He made his announcement on April 11th, and he stated that Josh is going to run again for the New York 19th District. Now, we found this quite interesting, not because Josh had lost in 2022 to Marc Molinaro by what was reported as about 2 points. Now, to be clear about that, Josh Riley actually lost by 2.2%, 2.2% of the vote, and actually he lost by 6,134 votes. So, not exactly the smallest margin, with fully 1/3 of all of the New York 19th, 750,000 individuals, constituents in that. He lost by about 1% of the population of the district. So that's something that's important to note. But what we really found interesting is some of the past, some of the things that are very important. If you're looking over this article, an article similar to it, you'll see the same thing mentioned several times. Josh Riley has lost by about 2. It was actually 2.2% of the vote. Josh is stating that upstate New Yorkers are nothing if not resilient. When the world faces big challenges, we always rise to meet them. I would agree with that in general. Upstate New York is very different than New York City or Albany or Rochester or Syracuse, which are Democratic strongholds. Upstate New York is predominantly Republican. In fact, in looking at those who were elected in 2022, of the 8 seats, new seats for the representation of New York State first-time members, 8 seats were in 2022. And of those 8 seats, 7 went to Republicans. Only 1, the New York 10th, went to a Democrat, Dan Goldman. So New York State, upstate New York, is different than the city or in the Democratic strongholds. So I agree. Upstate New Yorkers are resilient, and they do face challenges in a different way than in the city. Josh says that he's running because he believes in a valley of opportunity. I don't know what that means. No one knows what that means. It's not clear. And we deserve a politics that serves hardworking upstate New Yorkers, not deep-pocketed special interests. That's interesting that he says this. Deep pockets. People with lots of money, especially at a time when we are in a recession in New York, in well, not just New York State, but the entire United States, due to the policies of the Biden-Harris administration, due to America becoming energy dependent instead of being independent, a major factor. Josh goes on to say, that's why I'll always protect Social Security, something that's not in danger, defend a woman's right to choose, except if there is a vaccine mandate, which he supports. So the government has a right to tell women what experimental drugs can be put into their bodies, even if they are pregnant, and to fight to strengthen the middle class, and it's why I'll never take a penny of corporate PAC money. Now, I found that interesting, corporate PAC money. This is something that's important. And again, we've known Josh 7, almost 8 years now, and we followed his 2022 race. We talked about it often on Twitter. Some people may have seen that. Now, before we get into the corporate PAC money, it is correct that Josh Riley is a native of Broome County. He's worked under Representative Maurice Hinchey's office. He did work for the U.S. Labor Department and as a counsel for U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee. Josh worked directly with U.S. Senator Al Franken up until the moment that he was forced out of the Senate. He resigned in disgrace with 8 sexual misconduct allegations against him. That was rather surprising. And Josh spent about 20 years, roughly, in Washington, D.C., not in Broome County, not in Broome County politics, but working for D.C. lobbyists as a lawyer. That's important to note. But I want to get back to the fact, and again, we know for a fact, and the numbers are here, Josh lost. He only got 48.9% of the vote. Josh is someone who is willing to win at pretty much any cost. We say that not because of anything negative about him personally. We've known him many years. But we cannot hide from the fact that, as we reported 5 months ago, Josh was so desperate to get votes. He was willing to take votes from any and every source he could. When his supporters were making ageist and racist statements attacking me for daring to ask questions of Josh had nothing to say. When we presented the evidence to Josh Riley and said, will you denounce racism and ageism in your campaign, that's at least one, if not several, of your supporters are racist and ageist, will you denounce that? Will you say that that is something that has no place in New York politics, in American politics? Josh Riley has never responded. We want to be clear. Josh Riley has never responded to us personally, even though he has my phone number and he has my email, and we've spoken and met in person several times over the last several years, but he neither said something to me personally, nor did he make a statement publicly. It seemed he was fine with ageist and racist comments attacking people who are asking him questions, as long as it meant that he received votes and possibly donations. That is what it appears. We are still waiting for a comment from Josh Riley about his supporters and the type of support that he is receiving. But one of the main reasons why we're talking about this today is because we received, when Josh made his announcement, we responded to it. And in his Twitter account, Josh Riley says, I'm running for Congress because upstate New Yorkers deserve better than politics as usual. Corrupt career politicians and special interests have sold out upstate New York families. That has to change. That's a very interesting statement to make, considering that Marc Molinaro has been a New York State representative, a member of Congress, for 3 months. And so we asked, so in the 3 months into the tenure of Marc Molinaro, who has had several town halls, one of which we have live streamed and is available for the public, and we did ask a question. In fact, we asked the first question at that town hall, what exactly is Josh's issue besides the fact that Marc Molinaro is a Republican and he lost in the 2022 election. What's the problem? What did he do wrong? That's an important question. And of course, we did have individuals who decided to defend Josh. In particular, one individual said, Josh has to make a case for himself on the issues, but here's a reason. Marc Molinaro's town halls have been nothing more than photo ops for him. He usually sidesteps almost every question and never shows that he actually listened to what's said. Again, that's not the experience I had, and we discussed that at some length, that actually Marc Molinaro does answer constituents' questions, although the constituents who are asking the question may not agree with his answer, as we see in this case. So we did have that discussion. And we do know that, at least on Twitter, several of the individuals that were responding positively to the news from Josh Riley were from Ohio in particular and other states and areas outside of New York. But every politician deserves, and every candidate deserves, to have as much support as they can get. We will not hold that against them, but we're looking for where is the substance that stands behind all of this. And we want to get into that issue about corporate PAC money. See, Josh makes a big deal about the fact that he doesn't accept corporate PAC money. That's a key wording, and he makes it very, very clear, because he is willing to take donations from unions. He is willing to take money from PACs, political action committees. He says corporate to make it very clear on exactly who he's getting the money from. The reason why we bring that up is because on April 12th, Josh Riley said that he had raised more than $250,000 already in 24 hours of making his announcement. And again, he says, I'm so humbled by everyone who has chipped in and sent words of encouragement. I'm not accepting a penny of corporate PAC money, and that's okay with me because I have you instead. We think it's very interesting because according to the St. Louis Fed, the Federal Reserve, we can see that on average, since the day that Joe Biden has been in office, inflation has been about double what we had seen previously to that. That under the Trump administration, we had about 4%, 3 to 4% of inflation, and currently we're looking at 7 to 8% inflation under the Biden-Harris administration. So pockets are tight. We know this. I mean, you've seen this. When you go to the store every day and you are buying your regular groceries, you know that eggs have gone up by 500%. Lettuce is hard to find and has gone up approximately 300%. There are many items on shelves that are missing. Roughly about 15% of shelves, maybe more, are empty at any given moment. There are issues that the average family in America are running into. So we wanted to go over something because, it's corporate PACs. At a time where there is high inflation, at a time when many families are struggling because the cost of food has, in some cases, doubled for families, and we're seeing that unemployment is increasing, who's giving this money? And why does he emphasize corporate PACs versus any political action committee? Why is there a difference? Well, looking at the 2022 results, and this is coming from Open Secrets New York, an independent, nonpartisan organization looking at the New York 19 race, which is one of 3 different locations Josh Riley ran for in 2022. We see that some of his top donors are corporations. So while he isn't taking corporate PAC money, we are seeing that there are major corporations that are donating to Josh Riley, and he has no problem taking that. So he took $58,000 from Apple. He happened to take $34,000 from Cornell. He took $35,000 from Google. So he is willing to take money from corporations, just not corporate PACs. That's not just subtle. He's trying to give you the impression that he's not getting corporate income or corporate donations. He is. So that's not exactly honest. it's a play on the wording, but let's think of it more importantly. We do notice that there is AmeriPAC, the Fund for a Greater America. There is a Democracy Engine, and of course there's also the Midwest Values PAC. So Josh is getting money from PACs. He is taking money from PACs. And that may sound odd considering he said he doesn't take corporate PAC money. What does that mean? And we hear this from a lot of politicians. We hear this all the time that, oh, no, I wouldn't take money from this group or that group, but yet they are taking corporations. They are taking money from unions. They are taking it from colleges. So what does this mean? And when we see this PAC, what does that mean? Well, AmeriPAC, the Fund for a Greater America, is a leadership political action committee. What is a leadership political action committee? Well, as defined by Open Secrets itself, it's a politician that puts together a PAC, a political action committee, and they collect money. So corporations can donate to the leadership PAC, and that leadership PAC, usually run by a politician, can then use that money however they wish. In particular, as stated by Open Secrets, they state, and some use their PACs, their political action committees, to hire additional staff, even their family members, and to travel around the country or eat in some of Washington's finest restaurants. The limits on how a politician can spend leadership PAC money are not especially strict. So the leadership PAC is a way that corporations can give money to a politician without saying that they've given it through a corporate PAC donation, but they bundle that money, and that politician can use that money to go out on the town, buy clothing, to employ friends and family. That's not exactly the most above board kind of donation you could possibly make. But we do see, according to Open Secrets, that Josh Riley received money from AmeriPAC. Who's AmeriPAC? Well, AmeriPAC is Honorary Chairman Steny Hoyer, a Democrat. And it is his PAC makes sure that Democrats get elected if they can. They donate only 100% towards Democrats to get them elected, as well as eating out on the town, hiring family members and friends, and other luxuries that they would not otherwise be able to afford. And there's also Midwest Values PAC. Now that's another PAC that seemed very interesting. By the way, this is the funding for AmeriPAC, and when I say they only donate to Democrats, according to the contribution data from 2021 to 2022, they gave 100% to Democrats and 0 to Republicans, using $1.29 million only to Democrats. They raised $7 million. They spent $7.2 million. They have $2 million on hand, which got $7 million, $7.5 million, only spent $1.3 on giving it out to candidates like Josh Riley. We would imagine that somewhere that $3 million that seems to be missing might have been spent on going out to restaurants, getting nice clothes, taking vacations that Steny Hoyer otherwise would not have been able to do. But again, there's the Midwest Values PAC. Who is that? Who does that represent? The Midwest Values PAC is from Al Franken. Now, again, I want to remind you, Josh Riley worked for Al Franken when Al Franken was in the United States Senate. And Al Franken was disgraced. In 2017, he announced his resignation because there were 8, as it turned out, 8 accusations from women of sexual assault. As quoted here by The Guardian on December 7th of 2017, more than 6 women accused him of groping or trying to kiss them. And of course, not only did the public under the Me Too, but Democrats, his fellow Democrats, insisted that Al Franken would remove himself, and he did in fact resign in disgrace. This is who Josh Riley worked for. So, being a very loyal supporter, and I know for a fact that Josh Riley is a strong supporter of Al Franken to this day. He has spoken up at that time and since to defend Al Franken, and returning the favor, Al Franken supports those who supported him with the Midwest Values PAC, making his donation. And again, this is yet another leadership PAC that employs friends and family, which some would find that to be less than credible use of the money. But I wanted to take another look at this. Let's look at this, because there's a big question that's hanging over. There's a big question that's hanging over this whole thing. Why is Josh Riley running again? He's saying that upstate New York, which tends to vote in Republicans and differ from the rest of the state, that they need to be represented, that something is wrong. It's been 3 months. We know that 7 out of 8 of the elections in New York State went to Republicans. Josh Riley lost. What is it that we see is different about Marc Molinaro than Democrats? What has Marc Molinaro done that Josh Riley thinks is wrong? We want to look at that. And to do so, we're going to take a comparison. We looked at the one Democrat, Dan Goldman, who is a first-time Democrat, first-time representative in Congress, and we're going to compare him to Marc Molinaro, a first-time congressman as well. And so we can see the first thing that we know, and this is going from GovTrack, Representative Dan Goldman of the New York 10th District, and we can see the very first thing. From January 2023 until March 2023, Representative Dan Goldman missed 11 out of 182 votes, 6%. This is much worse than the median of 1.6 among lifetime records. He is significantly, and by a multiple of 500%, missed more votes than members of Congress traditionally do. As a comparison, looking at Marc Molinaro, we see that he missed 2 votes out of 182 in the same time period, which is 1.1% and on par with the average, what we see from most members of Congress. So, automatically, the first thing that we see that's very different is that there is a massive difference between the Democrat, who has missed 10 more votes than Marc Molinaro, 9 more votes than Marc Molinaro, and is well above the norm, versus Marc Molinaro, who is about on average. The second thing is their voting records. As you can see, Marc Molinaro voted for H.R. 406, he voted for H.R. 302, he voted for House Resolution 11, and against Congressional Resolution 21. Very straightforward. Dan Goldman, the Democrat, voted almost exactly the same. These are key votes. The only difference between the two is that Dan Goldman voted against House Resolution 11, establishing the Select Committee on the Strategic Competition between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. He was only part of 65 members who voted against that. That's important. H.R. 11, again, is about having competition with China. And we can see that 65 Democrats all voted to support China. Dan Goldman, the Democrat, voted to support China, and Marc Molinaro, the Republican, voted against supporting China and its stranglehold on our manufacturing, all the goods that we need. Okay, that is a difference. I don't know if that's a difference that people would want. I don't know that that's a negative that anyone would say, ooh, well, that's a bad thing. Let's keep looking, though. What are the other differences that we can see between Marc Molinaro and the only Democrat that was elected in 2022? Well, let's look at the legislation. What did they introduce? The job of a member of Congress is not only to vote on bills, but to introduce bills to try and make things better for New York State and the nation. And we can see that Dan Goldman introduced two bills, H.R. 1295, the Early Voting Act, and H.R. 1349, African Burial Ground International Memorial Museum and Educational Center Act. Okay, that's a mouthful. African burial grounds are important. That would change the economy of the United States. That changes international politics. It may be an issue many people support. But of the two bills that he introduced in March, H.R. 1295, as reported by GovTrack, as you can see, has 0 co-sponsors and has a 1% chance of being passed. So much for early voting. H.R. 1349, the African Burial Grounds, well, that has 7 sponsors and has a 39% chance of passing. But it really won't affect the economy. It won't affect international policy. It won't really affect most people's lives. Let's look at what we see for Marc Molinaro. Marc Molinaro, in the same time, has introduced 4 bills, so twice as many as the Democrat. He introduced H.R. 670, Think Differently Database. It has 12 sponsors. Of those, 7 happen to be Democrats. The majority of people sponsoring his bill that he introduced are Democrats. It has a 23% chance of being able to become law. He also introduced House Resolution 170, recognizing it's the congressional intent of the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, that enhanced federal medical assistance percentage funds are to be directly shared with the counties in states with a Medicaid local share requirement. He wants the money of the Obamacare to go to the counties to help the counties pay for Obamacare. Fair enough. That's co-sponsored by 3 members. We see H.R. 1358, Combating Rural Inflation. Inflation is a major issue. We all know that. We know that when we go to the store. It only has 2 sponsors, both of them being Democrats, and it has a 4% chance of passing. And finally, we have H.R. 1716, the Global Aircraft Maintenance Safety Improvement Act. Who doesn't want planes to be better? It's making our planes better in flying in the air. Fantastic. That has 27 co-sponsors, and 13 of those sponsors, about half, are Democrats, and it has a 5% chance of being passed. Again, to compare, the only Democrat that was elected in 2022 for Congress for the New York 10th District is Dan Goldman. He has 2 bills, a total of 7 co-sponsors, and out of all of his bills put together, and that's for African burial grounds. Marc Molinaro has substantively tried to improve our aircraft. He's trying to combat inflation. He's trying to improve the databases that work and our Medicaid. And he has a total of 44 members of Congress that are supporting his 4 separate bills. It kind of sounds like Marc Molinaro is doing his job, that he is effectively getting many members of Congress to support bills that he is introducing. Those bills have substantive, real-world impact on what you can buy, how you spend your money, how you're paying for your health care. He's trying to improve the quality of life for every individual in his constituency and the United States. But we're not seeing that from the Democrat. He's worried about politics. He's looking to improve diversity and equity. He's looking towards pandering, it would seem, even though he's missing more votes than all the rest of Congress. So if Josh Riley truly, as he states in his press release, if he's truly trying to help upstate New Yorkers, if he wants to help them face the world, the big challenges in the world, then shouldn't he run for the New York 10th district? That seems to be the district that's in trouble. That seems to be the problem right now. They have a representative in New York 10 that isn't showing up for votes, that is pandering to voters, putting out bills that will not affect people's lives, that isn't addressing inflation, that isn't addressing jobs. It isn't making things safer. Shouldn't Josh Riley be running for the New York 10, not the New York 19? We don't know. All we know is that we did reach out and we asked a very simple question of Josh Riley. Why are you deciding to run? Is it because your ego is upset that you lost? Is it because a Republican won and you're a Democrat? Are those the only substantive reasons that you are running so quickly for an election that's so far away? We don't know. Josh has not responded. Other people did respond to us. People who were supporting, apparently Democrats that are supporting their Democratic candidate. Fantastic. We won't question that. But Josh himself, as we have seen repeatedly, he won't respond. Because Josh, even in 2022, 5 months ago, still won't respond to ageism and racism. He's more than happy to take those votes and to take that support because he just wants to win, apparently. We believe this is something that you'll see consistently across this nation. As we're starting to hear more and more candidates talk about running in 2024, and very often it seems to be sour grapes. And there seems to be no substance behind it. Marc Molinaro is doing his job. As we said, and as you can see for yourself, here's Marc Molinaro. We're on the screen asking the question. Marc Molinaro is taking questions from the public. He seems to be doing his job. I don't know why Josh is running or why he's decided to run so quickly, and he doesn't seem to want to answer that. Are you seeing the same thing in your region across America? Are you seeing candidates that seem to be running because of sour grapes? Because the other guy won, the other party won, and they just don't like that? Do you want to see candidates run because of substance, because of issues that actually matter to you? Or do you want to see them run because of diversity and equity? We look forward to hearing what you have to say as we continue to follow the New York 19 and all the congressional races across this nation in the coming election. We thank you. We look forward to seeing you every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. I know you've heard it before. What difference does it? You make the difference when you watch, chat, tweets, your likes and shares, and your subscription. You make the difference. From across the world, you help us to keep the lights on and the stream alive. You are making the difference to fight the woke and the crazy legislation that we see before. We at No Soundbites Allowed, and I want to thank you for everything that you do in helping us reach our goal, and your likes, your tweets, your comments, and your subscriptions to the channel. We want to thank you from the bottom of our heart. And this is a special thank you to those who have donated to the channel and helped us in all of our efforts. We will strive to make this channel the best that we possibly can, because you deserve no less. Thank you.